I don't know what it is, Leanne, but it seems like every time I turn around, I'm talking to somebody or talking about somebody who's got ties to Ole Miss. I don't know what the deal is in my life these days, but I guess Preston Ashley would be the latest name that I'm not real familiar with, and maybe Hugh Freeze figures, hey, I got ties to Ole Miss as well, so I'll take my shot at the Ole Miss legacy.
Well, Hugh Freeze and Lane Kiffin continue to battle on and off on the recruiting trail. The Auburn Ole Miss battle runs deep since Hugh Freeze left Oxford, obviously, and not so happy terms, heading over to the Plains looking to rebuild. But one thing that you cannot deny about Hugh Freeze is his recruiting ability and what he can do as a recruiter during his time at Ole Miss, and obviously what he's trying to continue to do at Auburn. But one state that he really has strong ties, and despite him going over a couple states over to Alabama, he still has strong ties in Mississippi, and he's looking to pluck one right back from the backyard of Lane Kiffin and his staff in top corner. Preston Ashley, his Preston Ashley out of Brandon, Mississippi, has been on the rise. He's a name we haven't talked a lot about, but he's definitely been making waves on the circuit within the state of Mississippi. And again, Under Armour camps like these are really a stage where a lot of these rising recruits can continue to up their value. And Preston Ashley definitely did it this past weekend and debuting, over in Carrollton. This is a kid that Ole Miss has heavily been recruiting, not just because of his athletic ability, but obviously because he's a legacy at Ole Miss. So they're always looking to keep those football DNA, those good rebel genes continuing. But like I said, Hugh Freeze has built such a stronghold despite him being removed from the program, seasons ago, that he still has strong ties. And Preston Ashley is definitely, despite his loyalty and legacy to the Rebels and to Ole Miss, he's definitely considering Auburn a lot more than Ole Miss probably is comfortable with. He's Ole Miss has made no excuse. They visited, been in constant contact with him. He's been one of their priority targets. But again, Hugh Freeze has a way of kind of working that magic, and the Tigers have definitely been one to watch as of late with Preston Ashley, to try to take him out of the SIP and move him to Auburn. He shared about some of the other schools that he's looking at aside, obviously, from Ole Miss is and Auburn is Florida State, Louisville, Mississippi State, and Tennessee seems to be lurking, and has done kind of a quiet recruitment with Preston Ashley, but that will be another dark horse to watch. As of now, it looks like he has set visits to the Plains, to Starkville and to Oxford, which he's visited several times. So this will be another interesting recruit to watch as far as, will he stay in house? Will the battle, because this is a triangle battle if you look at it, because of course not only is Ole Miss trying to fend off rival and nemesis Hugh Freeze, they're also trying to fend off Jeff Lebby and former offensive coordinator at Ole Miss, who's obviously the head coach for the Bulldogs down in Starkville, for one of the top recruits not only in the country but in the SIP. Again, this will be an interesting one to watch. But I'm excited to see his progress again. He's really just kind of been one of those quiet stock risers that you like to see, but also brings a lot more shine back to Mississippi. I really think that this camp season is really where we've seen a lot of kids like Preston Ashley, a lot of kids from the Mississippi talent pool really shine. And we'll talk a little bit more about it tomorrow on our Ole Miss live show. Got a special guest coming on tomorrow that we can't wait to have here in the SIP in Oxford that we'll share. But again, we'll talk a little bit more about Preston Ashley, but a lot of guys from the SIP making moves, and Preston Ashley is one of those guys. But who's going to be the winner? Auburn coming on strong. Can Lane Kiffin and all that extra Pilates and all that extra stuff and all that endurance he does in that season outweigh Hugh Freeze out of the Plains? We'll see.
Well, quarterback Landon Duckworth was already well thought of, no doubt about that, as one of the best quarterback prospects in the nation, but he apparently really helped himself over the weekend.
He did. Again, he's really another stock riser. Those who have seen him on the circuit, Ole Miss has been really high on him. Again, like I said, I think this is the first season that I really see Lane Kiffin really go out there and really make it a point with this 2026 quarterback class to make his presence known in several different areas with several different quarterbacks. And Landon Duckworth, Lane Kiffin personally going out to Jackson a couple weeks ago to talk with Duckworth, kind of show him, what he can do for him. Obviously, Ole Miss, we have no question. There's no question, just kind of the development and what Ole Miss can does. And so they're continuing to keep on that stretch. Of course, Duckworth was committed to South Carolina. And he's just really upping his stock. We saw him all weekend. He's been just rambling really high on the Rebels. So Lane Kiffin has definitely looked to keep him there. The love is real. He talks about having the opportunity. He was in Oxford this past weekend. This past weekend for Junior Day, really taking the time to sink in with the staff. Taking time with offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss to kind of see the role. So he really feels like he could be at home in Oxford. His talent could really develop. But again, like many of these kids, they are weighing their options. Despite him being decommitted from South Carolina, once again, South Carolina still continues to recruit him heavily. He does say he's still in contact with South Carolina. They are by no means off the board, but he's really using this time, like many kids are that often open up their recruitment and decommitment, to just really look at other options and kind of see, really take the process in and really see what's going to be a fit for them, because this is a life changing for them, not just on the field, but also off the field as well. So Duckworth is also looking at South Carolina. They still continue to recruit him. Some other schools, obviously, to watch that have been coming on very strong, and he's hearing a lot from here as of late, is Georgia, Florida State, that he's in constant contact with. He shares, and he plans to visit all of those along with Ole Miss. And once again, we'll head back to South Carolina in the spring, but no official dates have been set. But again, Georgia and FSU have been in very strong contact along with Ole Miss. So he's looking to make stops at all those schools. He still there's still the door open for South Carolina. So of course, we know that there's a huge pool of 2026 quarterbacks that Ole Miss is looking at. Duckworth, Henderson, Ryder Lyons obviously would be at the top of their list, with the commitment of his go-to guy, Jameson Powell, who we had on the show here a couple weeks ago. So there's a lot of options if you're looking for a quarterback. So the quarterback remains a high value position, but the Ole Miss Rebels definitely looking to continue to build a strong relationship and remain in good company with Landon Duckworth, and it seems like they're doing a pretty good job. So when the spring dead period reopens up again here on March 2nd, Duckworth will definitely be making a stop to back into Oxford and looking to continue to build. And you can bet that Kevin Bolden and Lane Kiffin and all that offensive staff continues to be stepping up their game, especially with Georgia and FSU and South Carolina lurking.
And I don't know how you track down all these guys. I guess it's one part hustle and it's one part charm, but you were able to get all sorts of great interviews and comments from some of the top prospects all over the place, but especially in the South and in Texas. And DeShawn Spencer is a guy that you caught up with recently.
I did. I wish we had more film to watch. And as the season progresses, this off season, we'll try to bring in more film. But again, it was a quick turnover weekend. But as much as we like to talk about the 4 or the 5 stars, one of the things I want to make it a point on the recruiting show, because you never know where you can find some gems, is talking about the guys who are really building their stock. Because remember, in the high school recruiting game, when the portal came into play, it changed the game. So we have to remember that even the top guys are always constantly having to build their stock. That's why we see that these camps 7-on-7 have turned a new leaf and become even more valuable. Not just to the top guys, showing it and continuing to show, hey, this is why we deserve to be 4 stars, but for guys like 26 wide receiver DeShawn Spencer. This is a kid that I had the opportunity to see on film. So I can only imagine what he looked like in Carrollton, Georgia, to the live scouts and all our media guys who were out there this weekend. I mean, this is a kid from all the talent that there was there this weekend. And believe me, folks, there was plenty. This kid caught my eye. Never, especially when it came to the one-on-one marks, just watching his film, he jumped off the page. He's from Sarlin, Alabama. Of course, we know all about Sarlin, Alabama, big high school powerhouse coming out of Alabama, great for developing talent. I don't think that there was a player, like I said here, that didn't up their stock if it wasn't for this kid. I mean, this is a kid, he gets his speed, and I should have seen it from the jump before I knew his background. He's a former running back who's transitioned to a wide receiver, so that should explain the nasty footwork. And what I always say when I'm looking at a wide receiver running back, I don't care if you can run a fast 40 in a straight line with no one blocking you. Where I want to see is you on these one-on-ones with a guy that's not on your team. But more importantly, I want to see if you can cut in current situations when there's a lot of chaos, especially if you're being recruited in a top level program like the SEC. I want to see, can you make moves? Can you make moves on the fly? Can you read what's going on? And, and DeShawn Spencer did that for me. Like I said, he was just really impossible to guard the whole entire weekend watching his film, like I said. And this was just for me watching the short film and clips that I was able to see that he sent, and just kind of looking for different national media colleagues that were able to be there in person. And he's only 5'11". So again, despite his smaller frame, 190, his speed, his ability to cut, his misdirection, his mismatch when it comes to having on those one-on-ones was just really impressive. He just knows how to create chaos. And I'm going to say it, when you can change that kind of direction as a wide receiver, running back, athlete, whatever he wants to call himself, on the fly, just like he did, and be able to fend off that kind of talent that he did, because there was some big top names going across from him on that defensive side of the ball. He had no problem. So my winner of the Under Armour All-American stock riser, DeShawn Spencer, running back turned wide receiver. I'm telling you, that's why you got to go recruit running backs, because those are the kids that are plug and play guys. Forget about their not so ideal frame. That speed and their ability to cut, and just his ability to have that internal radar was really impressive. I think we're going to see a lot more out of the Alabama wideout. But again, I had a chance to talk with him just a few hours ago, coming off a weekend. We got to remember these kids. I think I thought I was a jet setter when I was on the road a lot, or especially during fall season. But man, these kids probably take the cake, Mark. They go from, even in the off season, like I said, they're playing 7-on-7. They're taking on, being a high school student. Some of them are playing multiple sports, like we said earlier. Not only are they playing football, they're probably playing track, baseball, basketball, all these, they are on the move. And it's only fitting that they would be featured on our show. But I got a chance to talk with Spencer, kind of just to talk about, his overall experience. He said that his overall experience from camp this weekend went really great. He got to compete with some of the best athletes in his class. He was really appreciated being mentored by the coaches. He said that really gave him an opportunity to see, the development of players, and having that experience to be mentored under great coaches, which a lot of these camps provide. I mean, it's like an all-star setting in a one-day setting where a lot of elite players get to go head for head and get that much better. They continue that separation. He said he really got a chance to see where he was as a player and what he really needed to develop and get better. As much as you hear the praises that these kids have from themselves, in a kid like Spencer, he was there not only to go for the head on for the best, show what he can do, showcase his elite skill set already. What he was really there for, like he said, was to get better, because he knows as a player that he's in a company of the best across the board. So how does he continue to separate himself? So he said, going to this camp experience, being there for opening weekend of Under Armour, getting to work and being mentored was just a great experience. But most of all, he was there to show how he can get better, how he can develop, how he can continue to stock rise. And of course, after this film, I'm sure that there's going to be plenty of people calling him, plenty of people watching him, looking to throw down that offer. But we talked about some of the schools that he says he's really interested right now. As of now, Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, Tulane, and Arkansas are some of the schools that are really kind of shown love to him, appreciation, been in constant contact with him. He says, of course, there's more colleges that he wants to visit for sure. He really wants to take out and be, kind of feel out his recruitment and pick a few more to add to his list. But he said right now those are some of his top schools, but he knows 2 schools that he's going to be visiting for sure in the upcoming spring. He hasn't set a date, but here we go. Hugh Freeze at Auburn and Tulane. So Auburn really making all the moves this week, between, getting the selected players as far as both, the next one camp and obviously the Under Armour camp. Auburn's definitely making big moves, but again, wide receiver out of Sarlin, Alabama, DeShawn Spencer, running back turned wide receiver, turned a lot of heads. Definitely was our stock riser this weekend at the Under Armour Next camp opening weekend. So if you don't know DeShawn Spencer, you will.
And what I noticed there, because I didn't know anything about him, in watching the tape roll with about 5 or 6 catches over and over and over, was, and this is the mark of a really good route runner, is that he was not giving away his move too early in the route. He was waiting until he got to the top of his break and he really pressed into the defender, and then he made his move because he had the defender on his heels, really pressed into him physically, and then made his move and got separation. Because if you make that move too early and break off that route with the defender where he's got 4 or 5 yards to adjust to your break, then you don't get that separation. So that was really impressive out of him, and just watching that little bit of tape out of Spencer.
And I'm glad, like you said, and that's just a small sample piece. If you were able to get that, like I said, me watching him on tape, like you share that piece of breakdown, and I really think that has to do with his running back experience, his ability to shape shift, as I like to call it. I said it all year long. Even though Carde Mack was a born running back, that's where his bread and butter. He spent all season leading a task seat as a quarterback, and I think it's just the running back is a little bit different. When you have a running back converted to a wide receiver, they just have this ability to be able to shift because they're having to make a lot out of nothing, often finding themselves in tight positions, having to kind of move and navigate to guys who have a lot of size and frame on him. So I think that Spencer having that running back ability, like you said, being able to kind of disguise what moves he's going to make before he actually makes them is a key component that I think is going to be one of those skill sets, Mark, that is often undervalued, that we don't see. Because again, often you can have an elite wide receiver with speed and frame, but they haven't quite mastered that ability to disguise just what their next move in. But Spencer did a really nice job of being able to not be able to reveal too much early on in the coverage when he had, even on a one-on-one, to be able to reveal just exactly what his next move. And then I think that deception really makes him an even more asset to all these schools that are recruiting. And like I said, I think after this weekend, his stock definitely will rise, and I look for a few other programs to knock him. But again, Auburn and Tulane seem to be in their good graces. So there we go with Hugh Freeze finding a gem in Spencer. And I think a lot of programs are here to follow after this weekend. But again, he will be definitely a name to watch.